right now. Okay? Just put your manners back in.
Do you think I was out of line?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I apologize for that
Good.
sincerely.
Good.
For decades, Tom Cruise built a career on intensity, discipline, and control. But nothing fascinated the public more than the mystery surrounding the one woman he never spoke about. Long before the marriages, long before the headlines, there was someone who stood beside him quietly as his life spun between chaos and superstardom. She wasn't a public partner, wasn't photographed on red carpets, and wasn't caught up in gossip columns. But according to insiders, she was the one he trusted when everything else seemed unstable. When Cruise finally admitted, at 62, that she was the true love he let slip away, the revelation didn't just shock fans, it exposed a part of him he spent years hiding. His explanation was painfully simple. "I wasn't ready for the world to know." That confession cracked open a story that stretches far beyond Hollywood glamour and into a childhood marked by instability, struggle, and a hunger to reinvent himself. And what shaped him the most wasn't fame. It was the early chaos he fought to escape. Before the world knew him as a fearless action star, Tom Cruise was a kid living in near-constant motion. Born in Syracuse, New York, he grew up in a home ruled by unpredictability. His father, a man Cruise later described as a bully and coward, made daily life unstable. Money was tight, arguments were loud, and the family moved constantly to outrun financial and emotional fallout. By the time he reached 18, Cruise had attended more than 15 schools, leaving him without long-term friends or any sense of belonging. Dyslexia made classrooms even harder, turning simple reading assignments into battles. Teachers mistook his struggle for laziness, but the truth was he simply couldn't decode words the way other kids did. That mix of instability, fear, and frustration hardened him. It taught him to adapt quickly, blend into new environments, and read people faster than he could read a page. This survival instinct, formed long before fame, would later shape every decision he made, from the roles he chose to the relationships he chased. But long before Hollywood came calling, he thought he was destined for something entirely different. Most people don't know that Tom Cruise once believed he was meant to serve the church, not the camera. At 14, he entered a Catholic seminary in Cincinnati, convinced that priesthood was his path. The quiet halls and strict routines offered something his life never had: structure. But even here, stability didn't last. Depending on whose version you believe, Cruise either left due to another sudden family move or because of a disciplinary incident that ended his time there abruptly. Whatever the truth, the experience left him caught between identities. He wasn't the athlete he thought he'd be. He wasn't the priest he imagined becoming. And he still struggled academically because of dyslexia. The one constant was his determination to find something he could excel at. That search would lead him, accidentally, to the moment that changed everything. Tom Cruise never planned to become an actor. In fact, he only auditioned for a school play because he'd just been cut from the football team after being caught drinking before a game. With frustration still burning, he walked into an audition for Guys and Dolls, expecting nothing. Instead, something clicked the moment he stepped on stage. The lights, the laughter, the rush of being fully present. It was unlike anything he had felt in his chaotic life. For once, he didn't feel behind, confused, or out of place. He felt powerful. Teachers noticed his energy, classmates saw charisma, and Cruise felt a sense of direction he had been searching for years. That night planted the seed for everything that followed. The boy who once struggled to read suddenly found a new language, performance, and it opened a door he didn't even know existed. But following that path would require a leap that terrified him and changed his life forever. Right after high school, Cruise made one of the boldest decisions of his life. He left for New York City with only $500, a duffel bag, and an almost delusional belief that he could make it. He worked as a busboy, a porter, anything that paid enough to keep him afloat while he chased auditions. He shortened his name from Thomas Cruise Mapother IV to Tom Cruise and trained at the neighborhood playhouse, where his fierce focus began to emerge. But even with all that drive, the dyslexia made learning lines nearly impossible. He memorized scripts by movement, sound, and rhythm rather than reading, developing strange study habits that confused everyone but worked for him. His early roles were tiny, blink and you'll miss him parts in films like Endless Love. But it didn't matter. Every small win pushed him 1 inch closer to the break that would change everything. And that break arrived not with a starring role, but with a part he was never supposed to have. Tom Cruise's breakthrough didn't come from luck. It came from a moment no one saw coming. In 1981, he was cast in the military film Taps, originally just as a background character. His job was simple: stand in formation, follow orders, blend in. But Cruise didn't blend in. His intensity on set caught the director's eye. He marched with more precision, delivered lines with a seriousness far beyond his age, and seemed to transform the moment the camera appeared. That unexpected commitment earned him an expanded role, something nearly unheard of for a newcomer. Each scene he filmed had a level of discipline that hinted at the star he would become. People began whispering about the young actor who attacked every moment like he had something to prove. And he did. Cruise knew this might be his first and only shot. What came next wasn't just another small opportunity. It was the film that turned his entire world upside down. Risky business wasn't supposed to be a cultural earthquake, but it became exactly that. When Cruise took the role of Joel Goodson, a high schooler experimenting with rebellion, he was stepping into territory Hollywood didn't quite understand yet. But the film exploded because Cruise didn't just act, he radiated something new. The infamous underwear dance scene, captured in one spontaneous burst of energy, became one of the most iconic cinematic moments of the 1980s. Audiences connected with his mischievous charm, and critics realized this wasn't another teen actor chasing fame. He had presence. The movie earned over $63 million, far beyond expectations, and instantly transformed him into a rising star. Studios began calling. Directors wanted him. And the world saw him as more than a promising newcomer. They saw a future superstar. Yet nothing could prepare him, or Hollywood, for what would come next. Because the moment Top Gun arrived, Cruise didn't just rise, he ascended. In 1986, Top Gun didn't just hit theaters, it detonated. Tom Cruise, playing the reckless and magnetic fighter pilot Maverick, became the face of American cool almost overnight. The movie dominated the box office, pulling in $176 million that year, becoming the highest-grossing film in the country. Everywhere you looked, people wanted the aviators, the leather jacket, the swagger. Navy recruitment spikes were directly tied to the film. Everyone wanted a taste of Maverick's adrenaline. Cruise's intense training, commitment to authenticity, and ability to inject raw emotion into a high-octane role showed Hollywood he wasn't just talented, he was unstoppable. The soundtrack, the jets, the attitude, it all fused into a phenomenon. But instead of riding that wave into predictable blockbusters, Cruise made a surprising move. He went after roles that challenged him, roles that demanded respect from critics. And that meant partnering with icons who could push him even further. After conquering pop culture with Top Gun, Cruise made a strategic shift that reshaped his reputation. Instead of chasing another easy box office hit, he took a role in Martin Scorsese's The Color of Money, acting opposite Paul Newman, one of the greatest actors of the era. It was a bold move. Newman commanded the screen with decades of experience, and many believed Cruise would be overshadowed. But he wasn't. Cruise brought a youthful intensity that matched Newman's cool, seasoned presence, elevating the story and forcing critics to acknowledge that he wasn't just a blockbuster face, he had real dramatic weight. The film earned Newman an Oscar, but Cruise walked away with something equally valuable: respect. Hollywood realized this 24-year-old wasn't content with fame. He wanted longevity. He wanted challenge. He wanted legacy. And that ambition set the stage for a performance that would push him into an emotional range no one expected. In Rain Man, 1988, Cruise made one of the most unexpected career choices of his life. He stepped back. He allowed Dustin Hoffman to take the spotlight while he played the emotionally conflicted brother, anchoring the story. But Cruise's subtle, reactive acting became the glue that held the entire film together. Some of the film's most memorable moments weren't scripted: the underwear scene, the phone booth exchange. Yet Cruise adapted instantly, turning spontaneous chaos into character depth. Audiences began seeing a new side of him, the maturing actor who could blend humor, frustration, and heartbreak within a single breath. Rain Man won the Oscar for Best Picture, and many realized Cruise had quietly delivered one of the most grounded performances of his career. But he wasn't done expanding. His next role would push him past charm, past cool, and straight into the rawest emotional territory he had ever explored, earning him his first Oscar nomination. By 1989, Tom Cruise had already proven he could carry blockbusters and stand beside legends. But Born on the 4th of July forced him into a realm of vulnerability he had never entered on screen. Playing Ron Kovich, a real Marine paralyzed in Vietnam, meant stepping into a life marked by trauma, regret, and transformation. Cruise trained for months in a wheelchair, pushing his body until the limitations felt instinctive. He immersed himself in Kovich's psyche, capturing not just the physical struggle, but the emotional devastation of a young man whose patriotic dreams collapsed into painful reality. The hospital scenes were raw and unsettling, exposing a version of Cruise audiences had never witnessed: angry, broken, unfiltered. His performance earned him his first Oscar nomination and a Golden Globe, cementing him as more than a movie star. He had become an actor capable of disappearing into a character. Yet behind that rising prestige was a personal shift brewing, one that would come from an unexpected source: a woman who introduced him to a belief system that would define the next 3 decades of his life. Cruise's journey into Scientology began not on a film set, but through a relationship. When he married actress Mimi Rogers in 1987, he also stepped into the world that shaped her family. Rogers had deep roots in Scientology, and for Cruise, who still carried the scars of dyslexia and insecurity, the church offered something he had long searched for: structure, purpose, and a method he believed helped him finally conquer reading challenges that tormented him since childhood. Through the church's study technology, Cruise said he learned to decode words in a way that suddenly clicked. That emotional breakthrough created a powerful bond between him and the religion. But as Cruise rose higher in Hollywood, he was also rising inside Scientology, drawing attention from its leadership. Their interest wasn't casual. They saw something in Cruise that could elevate their public standing. The deeper he went, the more his career and personal life began to intertwine with the church in ways outsiders didn't fully grasp. And one figure at the center of it all would become both his closest ally and one of his greatest sources of conflict. Inside Scientology, one name looms over everything: David Miscavige. Cruz and Miscavige formed an unusually close bond in the late 1980s, a friendship that placed the actor at the very heart of the church's inner circle. They attended events together, shared private celebrations, and for a time, Cruz became the unofficial face of Scientology. But the relationship wasn't always smooth. Former insiders describe moments of tension, like the elaborate welcome party arranged for Cruz at the Sea Org base, complete with a pool transformed to resemble a luxury yacht, only for Cruz to arrive hours late and immediately go to bed. Miscavige reportedly erupted in frustration, revealing the pressure behind the polished public image. Still, Cruz's influence only grew. By the late 90s, Miscavige wanted him closer than ever, reportedly dispatching senior officials to re-engage Cruz whenever doubts surfaced. Their bond was powerful, strategic, and deeply personal, intertwining Cruz's identity with the church. But this growing connection would soon affect more than his spiritual life. It would seep into his relationships, choices, and even the roles he pursued. Around 1999, as Cruz filmed Eyes Wide Shut with Nicole Kidman, he began to distance himself from Scientology, unsettled by internal teachings he wasn't sure he was ready to face. Reports claimed he hesitated when church officials offered to reveal advanced spiritual material involving the mysterious figure known as Xenu. Whatever the reason, something shifted, but Scientology didn't want to lose its most visible member. Marty Rathbun, a high-ranking official, was allegedly sent to personally guide Cruz back into the fold, offering intense auditing sessions and reassurance. The strategy worked. Cruz returned, recommitted, and soon became even more vocal in his defense of the church. By the early 2000s, he was no longer just a participant. He had become a champion, using his influence to push for official recognition in countries where Scientology faced opposition. But as his devotion grew, so did Hollywood's discomfort. His image began changing from mysterious megastar to outspoken advocate, and audiences weren't sure how to reconcile the two. And soon, the tension between his personal beliefs and public persona would collide with his most high-profile relationship. As Cruz's position within Scientology strengthened, rumors began circulating that he was helping the church attract high-profile figures. Former members claimed he reached out to people like the Beckhams, James Packer, Jada and Will Smith, and even Steven Spielberg, hoping to spark interest. Some interactions were casual, others more pointed, but the speculation was enough to make Hollywood uneasy. The line between his career and his faith had blurred. Directors who once praised his discipline now worried about the influence surrounding him. And fans who idolized his intensity began questioning the forces shaping him behind the scenes. Inside Scientology, Cruz was celebrated, awarded medals, honored at events, treated as a heroic figure. Outside, whispers grew louder, especially as stories emerged about the church's involvement in his personal life. All of it created a pressure cooker environment that began to affect his marriage with Nicole Kidman. Their relationship, which once felt like a sanctuary, was about to reach a breaking point. Tom Cruise's relationship with Nicole Kidman began like a whirlwind. They met filming Days of Thunder in 1990, and their connection was instant, magnetic, ambitious, and intense. They married the same year, hoping to build a family quickly, but tragedy struck early when Nicole suffered an ectopic pregnancy. The loss devastated them, pushing them toward adoption. Isabella and Connor became the heart of their world, traveling with them from set to set. On the surface, they looked like Hollywood's golden couple. especially during the massive productions of Far and Away and later Eyes Wide Shut. But deeper pressures were at play. Nicole felt increasingly sidelined by the growing influence Scientology had on Cruise's life, while Cruise believed he was on a path of spiritual expansion. Their time filming Eyes Wide Shut, 2 years of emotional excavation, exposed cracks they could no longer ignore. What began as a passionate partnership slowly transformed into two people walking separate internal journeys. And that quiet divide would soon erupt into something neither expected. In 2001, everything unraveled with shocking speed. Cruise filed for divorce after 11 years of marriage, leaving Kidman blindsided. Reports emerged that she might have been pregnant at the time, but the pregnancy ended in a miscarriage shortly after. The emotional fallout hit both of them, but Kidman felt the fracture most sharply. Her entire future shifted in a single moment. The children, Isabella and Connor, remained primarily with Cruise in Los Angeles, causing Kidman's bond with them to gradually fade. At the same time, her career reached a breakthrough with The Hours, earning her an Oscar, even as she navigated heartbreak behind the scenes. She later admitted the divorce left her shaken, forcing her to rebuild her identity from the ground up. Rumors swirled that her distance from Scientology contributed to the split, though neither ever confirmed it. What became clear was that Cruise's allegiance to the church and Nicole's desire for autonomy were no longer compatible, and as the marriage dissolved, Cruise's personal life moved into an even more complicated chapter. After separating from Nicole, Tom Cruise entered a relationship with Penelope Cruz, whom he met on the set of Vanilla Sky. Their chemistry was immediate, and for a time it seemed like the beginning of a calmer, more grounded phase of his life. Penelope brought warmth and stability, and Cruise was openly affectionate, even considering a long-term future with her. But the relationship was weighed down by forces outside their control. His deepening involvement with Scientology created tensions that neither fully understood at first. Penelope, raised in a different culture and belief system, found herself navigating an environment she never sought. Friends close to the couple later said the pressure became overwhelming. Too many expectations, too much scrutiny, too little space for authenticity. By 2004, the relationship ended quietly, without dramatic headlines, but with a sense of inevitability. Cruise was again alone, and the church grew more determined to shape the next chapter of his personal life. What happened next would become one of the most controversial episodes connected to his name. As Cruise's celebrity and influence within Scientology grew, former insiders alleged that the church began an organized search to find him a new partner. Women were reportedly audited under the guise of routine evaluations, unaware they were being considered as potential matches. Among them was Nazanin Bonyadi, a dedicated young member whose life was allegedly reshaped to fit the role. New wardrobe, new grooming habits, new expectations. When she struggled to adapt to the intense environment around Cruise and Miscavige, the relationship collapsed abruptly. Nazanin later left the church entirely, though neither she nor Cruise publicly confirmed the details. The story became a shadow that followed Cruise, raising questions about how much control he had over his own personal life during those years. For Hollywood, the rumor reinforced growing concerns about the powerful influence surrounding him. And as this chapter closed, Cruise's next romance would propel him into a media frenzy, unlike anything he had ever experienced. When Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes went public in 2005, the world reacted with a mix of fascination and disbelief. She was 26, he was 42, and the relationship moved at record speed, from first appearance to whirlwind romance in weeks. But nothing stirred public reaction like Cruise's explosive appearance on Oprah. His ecstatic jumping on the couch, shouting Holmes's name, was replayed endlessly, shifting his image from composed superstar to unpredictable celebrity. Studios panicked, branding experts scrambled, and audiences questioned whether they were witnessing joy or unraveling. Despite this, Cruise and Holmes married in a lavish ceremony, welcoming their daughter Suri soon after. Yet the atmosphere around them felt intense, with whispers about constant supervision and Holmes being enveloped by Cruise's world. Public support began slipping, not because of Holmes, but because Cruise seemed to be losing the carefully built mystique that once defined him. And the stage was quietly being set for one of the most dramatic divorces in Hollywood history. In 2012, Katie Holmes executed one of the most calculated exits Hollywood had ever seen. After nearly 6 years of marriage, she filed for divorce without warning, catching Cruise completely off guard. Her plan had been built quietly, involving burner phones, secret meetings, and lawyers working outside Cruise's orbit. At the center of her fear was their daughter, Suri. Holmes wanted full control over her upbringing and, according to court filings later referenced publicly, felt she needed to protect Suri from deeper involvement in Scientology. The divorce finalized in just 11 days, almost unheard of for a couple of their stature. Afterward, Cruise's relationship with Suri faded quickly. By 2013, sightings stopped entirely. When Suri turned 18, she removed his last name and adopted her mother's middle name instead, becoming Suri Noel. The distance wasn't just emotional. It signaled a permanent fracture in the father-daughter bond. And as Cruise processed the loss privately, his career was about to face another crisis. Just a few years earlier, Tom Cruise had been one of the most bankable stars in the world. But by 2006, his image had taken too many hits. Paramount Pictures, his longtime studio partner, publicly severed ties, claiming his behavior had damaged the brand. It was a stunning fall for a man who had once defined box office success. Though Mission Impossible 3 earned solid numbers, they weren't enough to overshadow the growing discomfort surrounding him. Talk show clips, tense interviews, and aggressive defenses of Scientology fed a narrative that Cruise had lost control. Industry insiders whispered that studios were nervous to work with him. For the first time in decades, Hollywood wasn't chasing him. He was chasing stability. He needed something dramatic to shift the conversation, something bold enough to remind the world why they ever fell in love with him as an actor. And that turning point arrived from the most unexpected place, a bizarre comedy role that transformed everything. In 2008, Cruise took a gamble that stunned the industry. He appeared in Tropic Thunder as Les Grossman, a crude, loud, bald studio executive who burst onto the screen with chaotic energy. Buried under prosthetics and unleashing unrestrained humor, Cruise was unrecognizable, and audiences loved it. The surprise performance repositioned him instantly, proving he could laugh at himself and break away from the polished image that once defined him. With momentum returning, he doubled down and reshaped the Mission Impossible franchise into a spectacle built on real stunts. Cruise clinging to an airplane during takeoff, scaling the Burj Khalifa with the wind roaring around him. These weren't camera tricks. They were personal statements. He wanted audiences to feel the danger, the commitment, the authenticity. And they did. Each new installment revived his reputation, reminding the world that no one gave himself to a role the way Tom Cruise did. The comeback had begun, and it was only getting stronger. During the pandemic, studios rushed movies to streaming, but Cruise refused. Top Gun. Maverick had to be seen in theaters, or not at all. That gamble paid off in historic fashion. When the film finally released in 2022, It didn't just succeed, it soared past every expectation, earning over $1.5 billion worldwide. Audiences praised its heart, realism, and sense of old-school spectacle. Cruise's commitment to practical filmmaking, aerial training, and emotional storytelling reignited the magic of blockbuster cinema. Critics hailed him as the last movie star, a performer who still valued the theatrical experience enough to risk everything for it. Veterans saluted him, fans celebrated him, and Hollywood, once wary, opened its doors again. Maverick wasn't just a sequel. It was validation that Tom Cruise's legacy wasn't built on controversy or fame alone. It was built on relentless effort, unmatched discipline, and a passion for storytelling that refused to fade. But even as his career soared, his personal life sparked new curiosity. By 2025, whispers began to swirl again, this time linking Cruise to actress Ana de Armas. Paparazzi spotted them at a quiet Valentine's dinner in London, then leaving a private helicopter landing together days later. Her dogs were seen boarding his aircraft, and the two slipped out of David Beckham's birthday party at 3 a.m., avoiding cameras. Official sources insisted they were just friends, but the images suggested a deeper connection. Both were single, both intensely private, both navigating careers defined by reinvention. Whether the relationship is real or simply the latest spark of public fascination, one truth remains: Tom Cruise's life has never been predictable. From chaotic beginnings to global superstardom, from public stumbles to triumphant comebacks, he has lived a story bigger than any character he's played. And even now, at 62, the world watches him with the same question: what will Tom Cruise do next?